Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily News. I'm Nicholas Richardson. The American government has issued a stance against the inclusion of TVN and Polsat on Poland's list of strategic companies. According to the White House, the use of a tool to protect against external enemies for internal political purposes is unacceptable. TVN is owned by an American company. When rumours surfaced about a plan for its purchase by the Hungarians, Donald Tusk reacted by trying to put it on a list of Poland's protected strategic companies, a list usually reserved for military, energy or telecommunications companies, whose status is a matter of national security. Why does the Polish Prime Minister want to control the sale of TVN?
According to the White House, using tools to protect against external enemies for internal political purposes is unacceptable. This is a reaction of the White House regarding Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk's plan to put TVN and Polsat on the list of strategic companies. What should a list of protected strategic companies for the interests of the Polish state look like? And why shouldn't TVN be on that list? Today, I'm taking a closer look at the situation. In a world where manipulation and harmful actions by our adversaries are increasingly sophisticated, it is essential to ensure that the media remain free from hostile interference. This requires constant vigilance on the part of governments, civil society and the private sector. Poland's position on the front lines of defending Europe and NATO from harmful foreign influences requires protecting the independence of the media to maintain democracy. Using the tool of protection against external enemies for internal political purposes is unacceptable. The existence of an independent media that looks at the government's actions and exposes election lies is hugely important. Donald Tusk has clearly indicated his favourite TV station. So much that reports of Hungary's desire to buy the TVN station from American Discovery forced the Prime Minister to act. I have made the decision to make the regulation on entities subject to protection and the control bodies competent for them to complete the list of companies that are also included in this regulation, including TVN and Polsat state TV stations. The question is whether the Prime Minister can include his favourite stations in the register of strategic companies. The regulations clearly indicate what types of entities can be subject to special state protection. The list mainly includes energy, military or telecommunications companies, strategic from the point of view of state security. Look in vain for media entities here. We do have it written in the law that these are telecommunications companies, but this is not about broadcasting, but about the security of information transmission. This, however, should be kept to strategic parts of the economy, not that any Prime Minister will put any private company on a list of companies controlled de facto by the state. Why might the Prime Minister care so much about TVN? Tusk would immediately lose public support. He would lose the power which, after what he has done over the past year, is necessary for him to survive in politics at all and to walk free. So he is doing everything to keep this TV station in the hands of people favourable to him. Zygmunt Solorz, owner of Polsat, also commented on Tusk's plans. Although this statement is written in a diplomatic tone, it indicates the Prime Minister's ignorance, as the Polsat Group's telecommunications companies and Polkomtel are already on the list. But despite the fact that Polsat Television was not and is not for sale, the Polish Prime Minister's announcement coincides with unprecedented pressure on the company's reputation, which in my opinion may be aimed at forcing a change in the group's managers and, in the medium term, selling off its asset. The government is trying to take control of who will be the eventual buyer of the two television stations. A list of protected entities is being established under Article 4.2 of the law on control of certain investments. I have no doubt that this is a decision driven by his political interests and the political interests of presidential candidate Mr. Trzaskowski, because without TVN he simply can't manage in this election campaign, and there is no law that would justify this move. Listing a company means restricting the ability to make free changes in its ownership structure. This requires the approval, so-called, of the control body, which is usually a minister subordinate to the Prime Minister.
German politics are in turmoil after the collapse of the German government. Germany has been struggling with an economic recession, serious internal problems with immigrants and the decline of the country's international importance. Yesterday, the Bundestag refused to give Chancellor Olaf Scholz a vote of confidence, which means early parliamentary elections next February.
The governing coalition of Social Democrats, Greens, and Free Democrats, led by Olaf Scholz, had been in power since December 2021 and lost its majority in early November following the resignation of Finance Minister Christian Lindner of the FDP. In the debate before the vote, Scholz defended his record by saying how he handled the economic and security crises caused by, among other things, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Had he been given a second term, he said, he would have heavily invested in the shattered infrastructure instead of making the spending cuts demanded by liberals and conservatives. Politics is not a game. It requires moral maturity, and the liberals sabotaged the work for weeks, damaging not only the government, but also democracy. The country needs investment in the economy and the military, and their opposition to increasing the budget deficit has made it impossible to raise the necessary funds. The opposition, on the other hand, accused Chancellor Scholz of brazenness, ineptitude, and embarrassing behavior on the international stage, to put it bluntly, of discrediting Germany. You presided over the biggest economic crisis since World War II, and you stand here and say that everything is fine, going into debt at the expense of the younger generation, spending money left and right. This energy policy of yours, it's embarrassing how you behave at the European level. Experts predict that next year will bring further challenges as German industry slows down and major brands that have been industry cornerstones, such as Volkswagen, look to cut production. On top of that, consumer sentiment is falling due to fears of job cuts. Not much will happen in politics in the next few months, that's for sure. We are waiting for the new government. If the new government wants to return to growth, it has to make that its priority, and that means putting other goals on the back burner. If it goes down the road of expanding social benefits and all sorts of gifts that it promised during the election campaign, it won't work. Scholz's minority government will serve until the new parliament is seated, which must happen no later than 30 days after the elections, and those will be held in February 2025. It's not just Germany whose politics are reaching a fever pitch, but also Canada. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland was supposed to present the budget to Parliament yesterday, but she unexpectedly resigned. The new Finance Minister is former Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc. The reason for Freeland's resignation was a dispute with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau over the direction of economic policy. In a letter to the Prime Minister, which Freeland also posted on social media on Monday, she outlined the crux of the dispute. Our country today faces a grave challenge. The incoming administration in the United States is pursuing a policy of aggressive economic nationalism, including a threat of 25% tariffs. We need to take that threat extremely seriously. That means keeping our fiscal powder dry today, so we have the reserves we may need for a coming tariff war. That means eschewing costly political gimmicks, which we can ill afford and which make Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment. Chrystia Freeland's resignation has not only shaken the Trudeau government, but also sparked an open revolt among Liberal MPs. More and more voices are calling for the Prime Minister to step down, which could soon lead to early elections in Canada.
A daring action by Ukrainian secret services right under the nose of the Kremlin. In Moscow, the commander of Russia's radiological, chemical and biological defense forces was killed in a bomb attack. The general was eliminated for ordering the use of chemical weapons in an attack on Ukraine. According to analysts, such attacks may start occurring with increasing frequency.
This is the scene of the attack, where an explosive charge placed on the handlebars of an electric scooter parked in front of the building was used. The force of the explosion was powerful. The general and his assistant were killed on the spot. They were using an electric scooter, and there is a parking lot for scooters at the entrance. So who would have thought? At the moment, you can see a lot of police, but usually everything is open. Anyone can go in and out. General Igor Kirillov was the commander of Russia's chemical, radiological, and biological defense forces. According to Ukrainian intelligence, he was behind the preparation and issuance of orders to use chemical weapons at the front, banned by conventions, also signed by Russia. The incident is classified as murder, a terrorist act, and illegal trafficking of weapons and ammunition. Investigators, forensic experts, and operational services are working on the scene. Significantly, the attack took place less than 7 kilometers from the Kremlin walls, which was expected to cause a panic in the services responsible for the security of the Russian dictator. Of course there are attacks in Russia. There are definitely backroom actions being done in Russia, but it can't be otherwise. This is total defense, total war. Russia has declared war on Ukraine, and one can say NATO, so a total war. We have the kind of actions we remember from our history, where the Home Army murdered whether blackmailers or high-ranking officers associated with the SS, SD, or the Gestapo. Such actions, although painful for the Russian command, do not significantly affect the situation on the front, which is tragic. Russia is gaining initiative and territory, mainly in the Pokrovsk area. The supply line of the front in the entire region is threatened. At Kursk, North Korean soldiers thrown into the battle without any support or cover take part in the attacks en masse. Most die without even approaching Ukrainian positions.
Today's topics obviously will be Ukraine, how to assist more, how to put the Ukraine in a position of strength to make Russia behind the table asking for the negotiations. And also the topic about how to increase our defense capabilities, what can we do, what is the interoperability between the countries.
Leaders of Northern European countries in the Joint Expeditionary Force operating under the aegis of NATO met in Tallinn at the highest political level. According to the agreements, Ukraine is to expect an increase in military aid next year. The preliminary figure is 12 billion euros.
More and more strange objects are appearing in the skies over the United States. Concerning people are alerting authorities, but Joe Biden's administration is downplaying the problem, even though hundreds of drones are flying over military installations and private property every night. President-elect Donald Trump is calling on the security services to reveal the whole truth about these suspicious and increasingly disturbing phenomena.
Look at that. Look at that.
They appear suddenly over people's houses, military bases, and even over the sea. Strange, bright, and loud objects. Some resemble drones, others are much larger.
What I'm seeing with the naked eye, you can see it's not a normal aircraft. And we don't have this much, traffic, usually on any given night in this area. So it seems like definitely some of them are aircraft that we can't explain what they are.
Concerned Americans ask, is this an attack by foreign agencies, such as the Iranians or Chinese, or perhaps an alien civilization?
We've now examined some 5,000 different sightings. We've added detection capabilities, additional observers. As you and I stand here today, to date, our assessment is that this is lawful, legal, commercial, hobbyist, and even law enforcement aircraft activity.
But American citizens, and many experts among them, simply don't buy such an explanation after what they have seen with their own eyes and in the media.
One of them got up there and said, I had 2 automobile-sized drones hovering over my house, and they're making a lot of noises as opposed to a jet plane a very long distance away.
President-elect Donald Trump, unlike Joe Biden, is taking the threat very seriously.
Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should, because the people are really, they happen to be over Bedminster. Want to know the truth? They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Have you received an intelligence briefing on the drones?
I don't want to comment on that.
Under Trump's previous presidency, recordings of military pilots who encountered an unidentified flying object were revealed. Unidentified until now. Now a civilian pilot talks about his flight 3 days ago. This is his conversation with the air traffic control tower.
Moving at extreme speeds. I don't even know how to describe how fast he's moving.
You are cleared to maneuver as necessary, left and right, to avoid the UFO out there.
That was the one that was at our altitude that would come up to us and sit for about 3 to 5 seconds, and then it would go back out over the ocean, over the horizon.
Serious accusations are being made against the U.S. government in the U.S. media.
The government claims it's not them. They say it's not them. So who is it? We're not being told the truth. They are dealing with the American public like we're stupid.
Joe Biden and our governor, Phil Murphy, are taking the same laissez-faire approach to this as they do to the border. and the threat of illegal immigration. Let's get our act together here.
Desperate residents are organizing. Some have taken up arms and are shooting at the objects hovering over their homes.
It's reached a point of almost insanity. You think about a United States senator come in and answer questions.
The strange phenomena were first only seen in New Jersey, now in several states, including Washington, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Maryland.
So we've usually not been too forward-looking about defending our own territory. And when we have talked about it in the last 25 years, it's been more about missile defense against long-range, high-speed ballistic missiles as opposed to unmanned aircraft.
Many Americans now keep an eye out for drones or extraterrestrial objects in the sky every night. Curiosity mixes with fear, and the lack of reliable information from the government causes conspiracy theories to multiply.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. And from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.